Today we will see how to install MonetDB on Ubuntu. And I must tell you that today we will create VOC database. And this database is important because I will use it as a main database in the most of the subsequent blog posts and videos. The first step in installation of MonetDB on Ubuntu is to discover what is the version of our Ubuntu system. And for that, we can read from this file. We will search only for version code name. So I will run this, and we can see that my Ubuntu is of focal version. We can also use this other command, but it will give us the same result, so our Ubuntu is focal. I will now clean my screen. The first step in installation of Monet on Ubuntu is to acquire a GPG key. GPG key is a key that Ubuntu will use to verify MonetDB installation packages before installation. And first I will create one folder if it doesn't exist. I will use this option P, which means that this folder and all of its parents will be created if they do not exist. So I will create this folder. I will type my password. And then we can go to this folder here and we can see that folder that we have created. I will then go back and I will change permissions on this folder, and I will change them to 755. Now here it is important to give some permissions to ordinary low privilege users, because our package manager apt package manager will access this GPG key also as a special low privilege user. So I will change permissions on this directory, and then we can get our GPG key. And for that we will use this command. This command will use wget to read from this internet link. So we will get our key from here and we will output our key to this location. So we will place GPG key into that folder that we have just created. So I will run this, and now we have our GPG key. We can go to that key rings folder, we can go inside of it, and this is our GPG key. I will also change permissions on this GPG key to 644, which are appropriate permissions for this file. Now this GPG file is a binary file, but we can read its content by using GPG command. So I will now run this command here. This command will avoid to read other GPG keys. It will only read MonetDB GPG key, and we will read its fingerprint. So I will run this, and this here, this hexadecimal number is fingerprint of GPG key. If we see here letters D, B, C, E and numbers 5, 6, 2, 5 and so on, then we know that this is a correct GPG key. If I go to this web page, here I can see this number that is here, and this is a correct GPG key for MonetDB. We also have this other number, but this number is GPG key for older versions of MonetDB. So if we are installing version that is older than 1149, then we could use this GPG key. I will now clear my screen. The next step is to add MonetDB repositories to Ubuntu. And for that we will first jump to this folder, etc apt sources list D. So we will go to this folder, and inside of it we will create one file with the name MonetDB list. So we will create this file. So if we go to this folder sources list D, and inside of it we will have our newly created file. And inside of this file we will place locations of MonetDB repositories. I will jump to this web page, and here we can see what we have to add to our file. So these are those repositories, and we can see that our repositories are signed by the GPG key that we have just downloaded before. So we have to add these two lines into that file, in this file. So I will go back to terminal and I will run two commands. So I will run this command that will run this shell command. So we will echo all of this here, and we will direct that text to our file. So I will run this, and then I will also add that second line. So we will append this line to our file. And now inside of our file, we have our repositories. So if we open this file, we can see locations of MonetDB repositories here. I will now go back and I will clean my screen. Now that we have repositories and GPG key, we can install MonetDB. First, I will update index of available packages because we have to read the content of those new repositories. And now that we know where MonetDB is, we will install MonetDB as a server, and we will also install its client. So this is client and this is server. So I will run this. Yes. And MonetDB is installed. I will now clean my screen. In MonetDB, databases are placed inside of the special folders, and we call such folders dbfarms. I will now jump to this web page, and here we can see an image of one such dbfarm. So it is a folder. Inside of it, we have some configuration files, and these configuration files are used to mark this directory as a dbfarm. And inside of it, we can also see some databases because we will create our databases inside of the dbfarm. Besides that, we have MonetDB daemon. So this is a Linux daemon process, and this process is used to create one folder and configuration files inside of it. So MonetDB is used to initialize dbfarm, and then we can create some databases inside. So MonetDB will be used to control and manage one dbfarm and its content. I will now go back here to terminal and I will run this command, MonetDB create, and I will create our dbfarm. So this will be the name of my folder. So I will run this, and now we have a dbfarm. I will now read the content of this dbfarm, and inside of it we will find only one file with the name MoneDB properties. So what is MoneDB? MoneDB is actually a name of a ruling dynasty of Franks that ruled from 5th to 8th century, and this dynasty also ruled Netherlands. And Netherlands is country of origin for MonetDB, so this term is used internally for many components of MonetDB. I will now read the content of this file, and inside of it we will see properties of dbfarm. But we only can see one property because all of the other properties will take their default values. And to read those default values, we can use this command, MonetDB get all, and then the name of the dbfarm. So these are the properties of our dbfarm. Now that we have a dbfarm, we can start our daemon. So we will start it as a process, and now our daemon will be manager of this dbfarm. So this daemon will look for this dbfarm and its content, and it will be used to manage and control this dbfarm. So I will run this, and now I will get content of this dbfarm again, and now we will see that inside of it we have 4 files. This file here is empty, and it is probably just used to mark this folder as dbfarm. Then we already saw MoneDB properties file. Then we have this MoneDB PID file. Inside of this file, we will find only one number. I will now read from this file, and that number is actually ID of a process of the MonetDB process. So this is ID of MonetDB process, So we can run this other command to confirm that. I will check what process is controlling port 50,000, and it is MonetDB daemon, and this daemon has ID 2869, so that is this same number, and I'm looking for this port 50,000 because this is default port of Monet databases. So that means that we will expose our databases from this dbfarm on this port number, and this dbfarm will be controlled by this MonetDB daemon. At the end, we also have this last file, that is a log file. We can take a look at the content of this file, so we can see that this is just an ordinary log file. I will now clear my screen. Next, we will create a new database. But for that, I will not use MonetDB. I will now jump to this web page to explain why I'm not using MonetDB. Here we can see on this image here that MonetDB is responsible for managing of dbfarm and its content. But we will not send commands directly to MonetDB. We will send our commands to auxiliary program with the name MonetDB. So we send commands to MonetDB. MonetDB will then communicate with MonetDB, and MonetDB will finally do the work. So I will go back to terminal, and I will use MonetDB to create a database with the name VOC. I will run this, and then I will read the content of dbfarm. And now, inside of the dbfarm, we will have a new subfolder with the name VOC. So this is our database. We can also notice that our database started in the maintenance mode. Maintenance mode means that only administrator on the local computer can start this database. And this is important when we create a database because at start, database will only have one user. That user is administrator. Administrator has default name and default password. Default name is MonetDB, default password is also MonetDB. And during this maintenance mode, administrator should log into database and he should change that default password to something more complex. But this time I will not do that. I will just continue to using a default password MonetDB. Instead of that, I will now release this database. So I will use command MonetDB release VOC. After that, anyone will be able to start this database. But I will now start it with command MonetDB start VOC. And after I start my database will start as a process and will wait for users to log in. We can check status of our database with command MonetDB status, and we can see that our database is in 100% health. When we start a database, it will start as a new process, and the name of that process is mserver5. If I run this command pgrep, this is process grep command, then I will get ID of the process that is my database. So my database VOC is actually a process with this ID and with this name. I will now clear my screen. Now that our database is running, we can log into it and we can run some queries. And for running queries, we will use another console application with the name mclient. So I will now jump to this web page to show you again applications that we are using to work with MonetDB. First, we have MonetDB daemon. This daemon is controlling dbfarm and its content. Then we have auxiliary application MonetDB. MonetDB will communicate with MonetDB, and through it, it will control and manage individual databases. So MonetDB is for individual databases, and MonetDB we use when we want to work with the whole dbfarm. When we start our database, that database will start as mserver process. And we want to communicate with this process, and for that we use this application mclient. This is again one auxiliary client application that is used for sending queries and sending statements. So I will now go back to terminal and I will run this command. This is how we log into a database. So we use our client, we provide the name of our user, So we have this option U for user, and this option D is for database. So we want to run our client as user MonetDB on database VOC. So I will run this. My password is default password MonetDB. And now we are inside of the database. So we have this SQL prompt, and we can type our statements and our queries. I will run this simple query, select some string as some column. So I will run it, and this would be the result. So this is how we run queries inside of a database. When we want to exit this client, we just have to type quit and then enter, and we are out. I will now clean my screen. Now that the daemon MonetDB is running and our database VOC is running, we can see how we can stop them. To stop a database, we use command MonetDB stop VOC. So I will run this, and then I can read the last line from the log file, and there we can see that our VOC database has stopped. We can also lock our database, and for that we would use MonetDB lock VOC. This means, so I will run it now, that our database will again be put under maintenance. And we can use this to now start the database in an exclusive mode because we want to change something about our database. We want to change some tables, or we want to back up our database. And we can run this command, and while our database is stopped and while it is running. So we can run it anytime, but the next time when we want to start the database, only administrator on the local computer will be able to do that. And of course, we can get out of this maintenance mode by using MonetDB release VOC. We saw that previously. After we have stopped our database, we can now stop our daemon too. And for that, we will use command MonetDB stop and then the name of our dbfarm. So I will run this, and I will also confirm that our daemon has stopped by reading again from the log file, and we can see now that our process for daemon has stopped. I will now clean my screen. I'm having this presentation inside of the Linux in a virtual machine. But I want now to show you a different way how we can install MonetDB. And for that, I will jump to this other virtual machine. So I will go to this virtual machine, and I will again run my command that will check what version of Ubuntu I'm using. And we will see here that I'm now using Noble version. So this is not Focal, this is Noble. I will then go to this web browser, and here I have a list of different versions of Ubuntu or Debian. Here we do not have Focal, but we do have Noble. These are newer version of the Ubuntu and Debian. So I will click here on Noble, and then I will find this file. I will download this file, so I will click on it, and it will download to my downloads folder. And then I will install this file. So I will now use this command in the terminal. I will use sudo apt install, and then I will install this file. But before that, I will jump to this folder here. So this is folder etc apt sources list d. And here we don't have any file that is about MonetDB. I will also go to this folder here, usr share key rings, and here we also don't have no files for MonetDB. I will then go back to terminal, and I will install this package. And now that this package is installed, I will go to this first folder, and now inside of it we have this file, MonetDB sources. Inside of it we have a list of MonetDB repositories. If I go now to this other folder, here I will find GPG keys for MonetDB for older versions and for newer versions. So we don't have to add this repository and GPG key by hand. We can use this package here. And then we can continue normally with installation. So I will go back, and then I will run command sudo apt update. And now everything else will be the same as before. Now I will install MonetDB and the client. So now the process is the same. So we will now wait a little bit. And now again MonetDB is installed. I will now clean my screen. In that first virtual machine, that is inside of this virtual machine, I have created a VLC database, and we will use that database in the next lessons. But inside of this second virtual machine, I have installed MonetDB, and I do not need this MonetDB. So I will take this chance to show you how we can uninstall MonetDB. First, I will complete my process by creating one dbfarm. So I will use MonetDB create dbfarm, and then I will start this dbfarm. After that, I will start with the uninstallation process. The first step is always to stop our daemon if it is running. So I will use MonetDB stop, and after that I will list all of the packages that have MonetDB in their names. So these are all of the packages that are installed by MonetDB. And I want to remove all of them, and for that I will use command sudo apt purge. So this command will now also uninstall this package MonetDB repo. I want to remind you that inside of this folder we have this file, and inside of this other folder we have GPG keys. And then I will go back and I will run this command. So I will remove all of these packages. We will wait a little bit. And now that all of these packages are removed, including MonetDB repo, if we now go to this first folder, we will see that our file is deleted and also the GPG keys are deleted. I will then go back here to terminal, and I will also run commands sudo apt auto remove, and I will run command sudo apt clean to delete all of the possible dependencies. So I will remove everything. Now I want to tell you that when we have installed MonetDB, a new user with the name MonetDB is created. So we can read our users from this file, and we will search only for MonetDB user. So here is our user. We also have a group for this user, and that group has name MonetDB. I will now remove this user. So I will use sudo del user MonetDB. I will delete it, and then I will try to delete MonetDB group. So I will use command sudo del group MonetDB, but this group doesn't exist because this group was primary group of this user. So when we deleted this user, we also deleted this group. And that is how we can uninstall MonetDB.